All right. So, I want to start out by giving you a little introduction.
Oh my gosh,
Uh,
yes, please.
who knows if anyone's even watching yet, but I'm trying to give the show some structure. So here we
Do it.
are with the amazing
We'll
Brittany
look back on this one.
Blum. um, for those of you who don't know, I have known Brittany since I was like 1 year old. We met in preschool, 2 years old. I don't know how old you are when you go to
It was like the,
preschool.
you know, it's the twos program at Temple Emmanuel.
There we go. The twos program at Temple Emmanuel in San Francisco.
Yeah,
Um,
go. Yes.
Brittany has been a lifelong friend and had an amazing journey to get to where she is now, having recently founded her own theater company, which has become a virtual theater company called Eschaton. Am I saying it right? I want to make sure I have the right
Okay. Right?
pronunciation.
It's really like it's like how you want to pronounce it. It's technically eschaton, but I've
Eschaton.
heard in the show I've heard people pronounce it multiple ways. So
I don't know why I was saying it with like a SH.
everyone does. Interestingly
Really?
enough. So
What does
yeah,
it
you're
mean?
more normal. Oh, it means it's a theological term, which means the collapse of heaven and hell. It's like the end of days.
Oh. Did you
Yeah.
always intend to call it that, or did it have something to do with COVID?
No, it was originally we called it Project M because it was kind of a placeholder title code word for like a murder mystery.
Oh.
And then I wish I could take credit for it, but it was really Tessa Whitehead, my co-creator, who was really into it. I think it's a reference to Infinite Jest. So it's a good
Ah. Clever. Shout out Tessa if you're watching. Hey.
Tessa.
Wow. All right. Well, we just jumped right in there. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I'm going to start at the beginning. I vividly remember going to watch you in Titanic um, at the international school. Do you remember that?
I mean, I deeply remember that show. Yeah, so I got I remember it. I don't remember who I was at all in it. You might remember more than me, but I do remember that being like an 8-year-old and playing a dead woman on the Titanic.
Yeah. It was a great
Oh, I
show.
do remember who I was. I was Madame Aubert, the um the uh the the escort of one of the rich men there.
Oh. Wow.
Not his wife. Not his wife.
Wow. A very adult
Yeah.
role for an 8-year-old.
That's why it stuck with me, I guess.
I guess that's what happened when you fall in love with lady theater at a young age, right?
Yeah, exactly. You learn things you'd never thought you'd learn.
So tell me, like, when did you fall in love with theater? Like, how did the journey begin for you?
Well, how did it begin? Well, I as you well know, I was a theater kid like pretty much from the start. I before I did theater, I did ice skating actually. I was like a competitive ice skater.
Right.
Fun fact that most people don't know. Um, my mom was a very competitive ice skater, so I kind of like naturally assumed the role of potentially becoming a competitive ice skater. And I did it. I did the like preschool, like getting picked up by my coach, getting driven to the skating rink, did like all the coaching stuff before. Like it was like pretty hardcore. And then it turns out I was not good at all. Was incredibly non-graceful, ungraceful. Um, yeah, it was really bad. So it was one. I think somebody told me once that I had to pick at a certain point between ice skating and theater, and it felt like a pretty strong choice to pick theater instead of ice skating. So I did it. But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things that's the kind of silly answer. But I did theater for many many years as an actor, and then I don't know. It was the I was always kind of inspired by the very geeky side of theater, the very like Aristotelian idea of like catharsis and kind of this magic experience you could have. Probably it was probably mostly like control at a certain point. I like the feeling of being able to control an audience of people and like kind of slip in and out of like people and characters. Um, it was very like romantic and interesting to me, and then pursued it all through school, and then kind of had a unfalling in love moment in college where I dropped out of my acting class and theater program in kind of the last couple of weeks because I was kind of disillusioned with the whole thing,
What caused
and
the
kind of rediscovered it
disillusionment?
again. There was a lot. I think that like conservatory based theater programs, even though the one I went to was like technically a not full conservatory, it can do a lot of harm in my opinion, because it just you spend a lot of time in kind of the conceptual romantic idea of theater and studying a lot of the theory, and then all of a sudden they like remember in the last like 6 months that like you're about to go into the real world, and so all of a sudden they started like teaching classes on unemployment and like
Oh my
uh
god.
casting and all these things, and it was, yeah, it felt pretty gross.
That's dark.
It was super dark. Yeah, I hope the program has changed since, but yeah, it was super dark. And I
So,
was also had some authority problems then too, so
oh my
seeking out some
god.
change.
So what
Yeah.
was your like state of mind when you decided to go a different route? Like what did you think you were going to do instead?
I I had no idea. I really didn't know. I was like a real like, you know, crisis moment for me where
Yeah.
I remember I went, especially at that time, I think you're looking for like some sort of guidance. And I think part of it was the idea of going out into, I was in Chicago at the time, and I'd done some like theater outside of school in Chicago City. And like Chicago's an incredible place for theater, but it can be very insular. It's a network of like actors and performers that really like stay in Chicago.
Mm.
Um, and like, and I I feel bad because I've never said this like publicly, but like I felt that a lot of the theater I was seeing felt very like circle jerky. It felt very
Mhm.
much like people were creating for other artists that were like also the ones that were creating for other artists and watching each other's work. So, which can be really cool because it's a very like supportive community. But it didn't feel like people really being like authentic in the work that was being done. And so, because of that, it all kind of felt plasticky. And like when I talk about this like kind of geeky idea of like catharsis and this like spiritual thing that can happen when you're like really tapped into an emotional like core of something, and when you're like using theater to kind of mine that in yourself, um, it felt like very disconnected from that idea of what I had for what it could be. So I
Yeah.
was in this moment where I didn't know if like theater just didn't do that anymore, or if I was in the wrong time, or if it just wasn't available anymore. I didn't really like any of the playwrights that I saw coming out. I didn't like the characters I was told I was going to be cast in. I
Mhm.
also can't sing to save my life. So I was kind of just in this weird spot where I didn't know what my role was in this like industry and medium. So
Mhm.
I just came back to San Francisco, and I actually went to work in tech for a couple of years. And
Interesting.
yeah, went on kind of a wild ride there before eventually finding my way back.
And so how did you find your way back?
Well, I what did I do? So basically, for a couple of years, I did this. I like I knew that I wanted to eventually come back into theater, but I like honestly the only way I could think of to do it at that point was to just make a boatload of money and like come
Mhm.
back as a producer of some kind, because it also, the weird thing is you're coming out of school. There's no one less powerful than like an actor with no connections. An actor who's like fresh out of school and like going out into the world. It's like, and I've seen it now because I'm a producer, I've been a director, I've kind of played like all these different roles, and there's like real power dynamics that are at play, especially in the theater world where Me Too never really happened. So like
Mm.
it's just a very weird world and a weird dynamic. Whereas a performer, you're doing incredible work, but you're being manipulated and used, and especially in auditions, especially when you're kind of going out there, it's very much an art of right place, right time. And so I just felt like very, very low power, and I hated
Yeah.
that feeling. I hate kind of going back to the whole idea of control. It wasn't really matching up with the vision I had for it all.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to go. I want to become uh, this like powerhouse. I'll go become like the next big thing. And as like a 50-year-old who's like powerful and smart and rich, I'll come back and I'll change the world of Broadway and I'll tear it down and I'll create something new, was kind of the idea. And so I joined, I came out of school with no job and no prospects and had never had a real job because I had done like theater, very weird, different versions of summers and jobs and things all throughout, but all based on like theater. So I had literally zero experience. And then I heard about this program that a tech company was doing where you could basically come in, and it was like an experiment they were playing with where they came in and they had this huge budget to support like potential leaders of the industry, where you could come in and like do a bunch of different jobs for a couple of years as you kind of like figured out how to be like, they're investing in you basically to be like a tech leader effectively. So I was like, that's perfect. That's for me.
Yeah.
So I literally stalked the head of the program. They'd already done all the classes and stuff for it. So or the groups, it's like consulting classes that kind of starts in. So I literally kind of stalked the guy who was leading it at the time, and finally got him to pick up my call. And like, we got a coffee at one point, and I kind of created this whole pitch for why I should be considered for the job. And
awesome.
They decided that it was a worthwhile risk. So I did it.
So how long did that last for?
So I did that for, technically that whole journey was like, was it 3-4 years? Something like that. I kind of came through the ranks. Tech Brittany didn't have a lot of friends. It was very competitive. Didn't have time to make friends on her way up. Ask anyone. That's not true. I actually made some great friends that weren't part of my actual like cohort as well, just at the company. But like I was lucky at the time too. We just acquired a company called lynda.com, which you don't know is like e-learning. So for a while, like I had it in my head that because we'd made this acquisition, that like it was an opportunity for me to get in and like rise to the top really fast. So I did that. And like jumped in there, did a bunch of like random jobs to try to like make a name for myself. And I did really well. It was like, it ultimately like brought me to like sales, which I ultimately realized was just another form of acting. So yeah, I turns out I get back to manipulation and control, which seems to be a theme.
Pretty good at it, right?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Turns out less catharsis there. Definitely not romantic, but I did it. And I did
what was your saleswoman persona? Who was she?
Wow. She was like, oh God, I'm trying to remember. I feel like I really blocked her out. She was like, she was so happy. It was like, because it was one of those things where somebody like taught me early on that like, you think they can't see it, but like they can hear your smile. And I remember like hearing that and feeling like I had like a secret that no one else had. So I was also like, I'm also in general like very loud. So I'd like kind of like take up space, and I was just like smiling, like wheeling and dealing. Like I would like have like 10 coffees all around me, and I was like shooting the shit. I'd have friends. I'd be like dropping secrets, and this like whole thing. I ultimately got put in like the corner, literally, like because I was so loud and no one could stand me.
Like splashing coffee everywhere.
I was really like, but I was doing really well, so like no one could really get that bad at me. But I was like, sitting there, like, yeah, literally like coffee's thrown everywhere, and like yelling, laughing. Yeah, it was not. I don't love that side of me, but I did it, and then realized I was kind of dying inside. That was the trek back.
Wow. So it's interesting that you were able to still like manifest your theater like part of yourself in that job. You didn't lose her.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I had to like, I didn't lose it, but I definitely had to like murder a little bit of the like artistic self to do that. Right. I felt like, what'd you say?
No, I just said you're totally right. That makes sense.
Yeah. It was definitely like a soft murder, but like there was like similarities and parallels in terms of the identity I was taking on, but it definitely was a murder of something pure and creative to do that. But I'm super grateful. I learned a ton, and like some great opportunities came out of there and some really cool support and network. But like, it definitely like, it was one of those moments where like realizing that like getting off of that ladder was like even an option. I think once you're on it, it's like it's a poison in some ways, because like I'd always thought like I could get on this, I'd like do well and ultimately come back, and I started realizing that like as soon as you like start committing to that version of yourself and start committing to that kind of ladder and that type of life, you can't really get off. Not if you're like really driven and passionate and you like care about something, because you have to kind of put in that same amount of like passion and like purity that I put in kind of to the artist self. And like I realized at a certain point that was manufactured and that like it wasn't really pursuing anything similar. So that was eventually I had to come back, but there was definitely it was still me.
Yeah. So how did you go from that to Eschaton?
Well, at one point, what did happen? I was pretty late to discover what's like known as immersive theater, which for those who don't know, and definitionally, it's essentially just like theater, but without the fourth wall. So like theater that happens all around you, not so dissimilar to like a haunted house, but not scary. It can be scary. I've seen a lot of scary shit, but not necessarily. Or like, if you've ever gone to any of those, the dinner theaters with like Knights of the Round Table and that sort of thing, like it's true immersive theater. But I saw I'd seen like that kind of work before in school, and I'd done some work with it, but I hadn't seen any commercially. And then at some point along that road, I saw Sleep No More in New York, which is a immersive show. It's been around for over a decade now, so I was actually really late to the game there.
What year was it that you saw it?
It must have been like 4 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
I've lost my timeline here.
I think I saw it in like 2012 or 2013, because I remember I was in college.
You saw it before me.
Yeah.
You saw it before me.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Totally transformative experience.
Yeah. Yeah, very super transformative for me too, just because like for me, it was the first theater, and I also like part of it was hard for me because like when I did make that like cut back to tech, I actually had like carved out the theater side of me and like put it aside. Like I didn't, or I was like, oh, you should take classes. And I was kind of like I got like disgusted and angry when people would say that to me. Like, it felt like so fake. And so I went cold turkey. I like didn't see theater. I didn't like, if I was giving up this dream of acting, I like didn't want to know about it. I didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
It was really, really hardcore cut for me. And then I went to New York a couple times. I'd seen like a show or two, but like each time I have a pretty like pessimistic view of most things I see on Broadway. So I'd like see it for kind of the sentimental value of it. Because I do enjoy the experience of like going to Times Square and that sort of thing. And again, romantic, there's another thing.
Yeah. And then
experience of it all. Yeah, but I mostly, not the performers. Performers are fantastic. All performers on Broadway are pretty much incredible human beings. But yeah, the work itself was like, it's just the model is really broken for Broadway. It's like, it's a real estate business at the end of the day. And so it's like, what's up, Bill?
Sorry, Bill is very uncomfortable right now.
Never.
Moving him around. Okay.
Yes, Bill. But yeah, so I had gone to New York with some friends and saw it. And it was like something had punched me in the face, because it was like the first time that I'd seen theater, and also like the first time in like years that I had seen theater that felt like it was authentically approaching an audience, like where they actually were, as opposed to just kind of like doing a show for the sake of doing the show. It felt like very aware of like who it was connecting with and why and how. And so because of that, it felt like deeply personal in a way that I just hadn't experienced theater being personal for a long time. And to me, that was like going back to the core of what made theater. It was revolutionary for me. And this idea that like this was not only like the art of it, but also that like it was the first time that I'd seen theater that worked off of a different business model than Broadway. It's still essentially the same business model in that it's still like there's still the anchor of real estate, but like instead of it being like Broadway is mostly a tourism model where like people, you know, they get a lot of foot traffic. It's mostly like tourists coming in and out. It's not, there's not a lot of replay value. Like Sleep No More is one where you got hundreds and hundreds of people through a night, and it's like timed entrances.
Right.
And there's like a holding room, and you kind of go through. It's almost more like an amusement park ride in some ways than it is like a traditional show. So it just creates a lot more opportunities, because when you've like finally, like this model of theater that we know now has been around basically since, you know, American theater was invented. And like before that, it was, you know, there was lots of different models of theater, but this is kind of like what we know now. And there hasn't been like the movie producers, you know, it's kind of like, that's it. That's like, that's theater these days. And so it's very limiting in terms of what you're able to do creatively when you've got this anchor that is like, you know, the same types of shows are built over and over and over again, because you have the same like capital base. So, and the same type of investing that goes into it, and the same, it's just like all the models kind of break at a certain point if you like bring in creative in there too. So this was just really exciting for me. So I went to the show, I saw it, I kind of like couldn't stop thinking about it. And I was at the time like trying to figure out what my next job was. And I'd gotten like offers from the company, and I was trying to figure it out, and none of it felt right. And I was like looking, I had even talked to another company about being their like new head of sales, and I was going to be this like the youngest person ever to X. And I was like very excited about like all these things, but it all felt really wrong. And all I could think about was like this like show, and it like just stuck with me so deeply. And I randomly through like random connections found that I knew, not didn't know, but I like was connected through a friend of a friend to the guy who had like produced that show, one of the producers of that show, of Sleep No More. And I was like so excited about it. And I, through that friend, like met this guy, and I basically said that like I wanted the chance to work for him and kind of do whatever I could to kind of learn under him and apprentice in some ways. And I got the opportunity to, he was basically like for a producer for a show. I'd have to come to New York. And so I and my now fiance Ray, I like basically picked up and like gave my notice like the next week and left and like moved to New York to work for this guy.
Wow.
And help produce some of his shows. So yeah, I spent a chapter like producing like a magic show that we were working on, and like helping to produce like the circus out there and a bunch of other random stuff. And so learned a ton, like a ton about the industry and about like the type of work that goes into this like immersive theater landscape. And then ultimately decided to leave and start my own company. And I met my co-creator, Tessa, who's the artistic director of the company. We were both working at that company at the time. And she left because she was a TV writer. And so like I company and like stalked her down because I always thought she was super cool, and asked if what I would have to do to convince her to like come back to theater and work with me. And I finally found a way to do it. And so we started doing it. So we started trekking along, and we've been doing it ever since.
That's so cool. Wow. What an amazing
It's
trajectory.
cooler than sales, Brittany, for sure.
I mean, it just seems like fate, you know, that this seems like you were in the right place at the right time, doesn't it?
I do. I mean, it's definitely, it hasn't felt that way along. It's so funny, like trying to say it, like going backwards, because it does feel like that when you tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not a seamless journey by any means.
No.
There's a lot of, yeah, it's a lot of like trying to like creatively figure out opportunities and figure things out along the way. But yeah, I mean, it feels good to be like, it's definitely felt good to be back in this world for the last couple of years.
I'm so glad. I'm curious what you learned while you were apprenticing that made you feel like I can do this. Like I found the things that I needed to know in order to recreate this in my own way.
That's an interesting question. I think one of the things that I learned, one of the things that I learned was like how to develop a creative taste and act upon it. Um, it's one of those things where like I think you can't if you're like I think one of the things about like producing and creating, and I'm sure you have kind of figured this out as well, like being in the producing world, like you have to have like if you have a decision or if you have a creative taste or an aesthetic, you have to be very decisive. You can't really like you can't have it like this way and that way and what you think and what you, it's like it's better to be decisive than to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one of those things where like making a decision and going for it and being like having a pure aesthetic is much better than like wavering out in uncertainty and like having like a 50% of whatever. So a lot of the decisions made were like probably not the best decisions that could have been made, but at least they were made. And like you have projects. And I think a lot of times I had like gone into like, I saw these people that I really looked up to, and it feels like, everything that you kind of do and up leading up to that kind of pales in comparison. And so you're always questioning yourself. And I think during that time, there was so much happening, so many decisions that had to be made every day that it was like, you just got good at saying like, you want this, you want that, you want this, I like that, I like this.
Yeah.
And that served very well creating since.
Yeah, I would describe that as learning how to trust yourself,
Ooh, I
learning
like
to
that.
trust your judgment, learning to trust your gut, and just make decisions based on like what you feel is right.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
It takes a
I
long
couldn't have that.
time to develop that. I think especially
Yeah.
women are, you know, raised and taught in school to doubt themselves a lot, and
Yeah.
overthink things and not trust their gut. And we kind of have to unlearn that and then teach ourselves, like I am right. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. That's 100%. Yeah, it's really yeah, I don't think no one no one along the road told me that that was something we should do. I don't think anyone ever told me to be decisive, like ever.
Right.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
have
And
you
now
always
you're your
felt
own
ooh,
boss.
you've been good at that for a long time?
I don't know. I mean, I think it gets easier with time, when it becomes a priority, which it is for me now, it's a lot easier to just trust myself. But it's a process for everyone, for sure.
Yeah. I just remember your room as a kid. You always had a really cool room, and I always thought your aesthetic choices were like really strong. So
Thank you. Wow.
you're
Yeah,
welcome.
I always
I was
had
always
cool
jealous of you.
colors on my walls.
Yeah,
I
you
remember I
did.
always had a
Yes, you
red
did.
room. Wow.
I really liked it.
I miss that. I haven't had like a cool colored room since I lived at home,
Your
I
room
don't
was
think.
really fucking cool. I loved your room. I remember we were both kind of like oddball kids, and so we'd hang out and do oddball things in high school. But I remember we'd go and hang out in your room, and every time it was like you could go downstairs into your room. It felt like we
Yeah.
were like going into like a subterranean like I don't know. I thought it was very cool.
The Amanda
Felt very otherworldly.
Zone.
Yeah,
That was
felt very
so
like surreal.
fun.
Yeah, I know it was really fun.
Oh, yeah, I remember like sitting in your room and watching movies on that cute little couch bed. It was so fun.
The TV that my dad had gotten in college. So
Oh my
that
god,
was
is
really,
that from
yeah,
college? No
that was
way.
his TV from college. Yeah.
I remember now, I like it was definitely vintage, but I did not know it was your dad's TV from
Oh yeah, it was
college.
vintage, but like not in a way that I was like proud of. It was vintage in a way that I really wanted a new TV. I was just excited that I like got a TV, and so it was like, but it always it like constantly made this like weird ringing sound that like I just
Yeah.
over like stopped hearing. But every time someone would come sleep over, they'd be like, "There's a loud ringing sound in the room." It's like I don't know, I don't think
I
so.
remember. Like I don't think I've ever really thought about it until now, but I do remember
Yeah.
that.
If you
That's
like
so
really
funny.
quiet on a sunny day, you can still hear the ringing. It's there.
Wherever you are.
Wherever you are, that's what I give you.
Oh
It's my
my
gift.
god. Okay, well, I want to get into Eschaton and talk more about it, there are a bunch of people watching, so if anyone has
Really?
questions, you want to chime in chat, all you have to do is type on the right hand side of the browser. I'm sure a lot of these people are parents, so I'm just explaining if they want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
type
careful,
anything.
careful question you ask.
Okay, so fast forward. You asked Tessa to be a part of this company that you were starting, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So tell us about the company, like the vision and the execution. I want
Yeah.
to hear all about it.
So we started Chorus Productions. Um, and the idea was Chorus being kind of this traditional idea and like Aristotelian, again into the geeky side of things, like part of theater. The idea was that Aristotle like was one of the first guys to like write down what are the different parts of theater, like what makes theater a theater, and what makes it, like, if you take out one piece, it's just kind of like you take out the audience and like you can have all these other things, but like if you don't have that, you're just kind of a crazy person talking to yourself in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the part that was always interesting to me was this idea of the chorus, which to him was like a core part of what made theater. And it was this idea of like a group that spoke for the audience. It was this like group that like was a representation of like what the audience needed to hear, of their perspective. And so they challenged a lot of like things, but they were a voice for the people.
I didn't know
Um,
that. I didn't know that's what the chorus was representing.
yeah, like the Greek chorus, and so like it spoke as one, as a character for the people.
Right.
And I was always like very excited about that idea, and this thought of like being able to connect or be. I think for me, it was like, again, like it didn't feel like theater was really speaking to an audience anymore. A lot of theater I saw, it was like speaking to itself or to each other. But like it really is there to serve its audience. That's kind of the beauty of what theater is. It's made for the people. And so it felt like we were kind of playing that role of being like a voice for the audience and creating things that the audience wanted to see, creating entertainment that was genuinely entertaining, and cathartic, and spoken with an authentic voice. And I think most importantly, met audiences like where they were authentically,
Mm-hmm.
like communicating in a way that felt real. Because you think about theater over time, like theater as an idea doesn't change very much, but like the tools, the way that you use them, the costumes, the tech, like all these things have changed dramatically over time, with the idea being that it should evolve to continue to like serve its audience. And like at a certain point, it felt to me like we just kind of stopped adapting the genre. We kind of like got lazy in like a American ideal of what like musical theater could be, and there was a lot of experimentation, but not on a mainstream, not funded in a mainstream. And that felt like a shame to me. And so the idea of Chorus was to do that, to kind of create experimental theater that was mainstream and had a business model attached to it that I thought was interesting, and could fund it, self-fund it in a certain way, that it wasn't stuck in like an investor culture of like a lot of theater is basically like created, you have a certain amount of investors that come in at a certain level, and you have to pay back that investment to them over time, which I think can like create it creates a lot of opportunities, but it can also create a lot of issues when you're constantly having to pay back.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought the business and the anger of that and the kind of the engine could fuel theater in a more authentic way. So that was the idea. And the vision was that I was really inspired by like Studio 54 and all these places that had felt more like natural places of like cool, engaged theatrical experiences. And like fun fact, Studio 54 was actually created in an old theater.
Okay.
And a lot of like cool clubs from the time were like actually anchored in theaters at the time, because it's big spaces and it's dramatic, and you can use a lot of backdrops and stuff like that. So the idea was kind of harken back to those kind of ideals, and to use immersive theater in such a way that like created a natural way to evolve nightlife. Because to me, I also like was two birds and one stone. Like I also didn't feel like there was a lot of nightlife that was very engaging to me. And so Tessa felt the same way. And what we were really excited about was this idea of like how you could build worlds that people could live in. And so like you go to a lot of theater and you like immersive theater specifically, and you like open drawers. It's cool that you see things in those drawers, but a lot of the time that's set dressing. You know, you open the drawers and you get like just stuff. What we wanted was when you open the drawers for there to be a world without a bottom. You know, you could just kind of keep searching and like feel like you could come back in this place, and it was always evolving and always like felt like there was a more to understand, that you could live in it. And so like in some ways it was a little bit more like an escape room, in that you have like, you know, there's a reason people like this stuff these days, right? Instead of going to clubs, people are doing escape rooms and stuff like that, because I think people are kind of awkward and they want something to do with their hands when they go out.
Yeah.
That's not natural to just kind of like sit there, especially when we don't really have the, you know, disco scene of like the 70s and 80s. Like there's not real, people aren't dancing in the same way they used to. So there's not like a lot to do when you go out. So we wanted to use theater as a way to like create a story and an experience where it was like there was a variety element, and there was a night show, there was a nightlife element too. But like there was a mystery, there was a story, and if you were interested in that, you could continue to come back and delve into it and play with these ideas and get into this like lore. But if you didn't, if that wasn't what you were into, like you could totally ignore it and just have a great night at like the best nightlife or best nightclub you've ever been to. That was the idea. And so Tessa, the writer, had spent like, we had already spent like months and months and months doing like scripts and characters and like big creative deep dives. And we had done all this work before COVID even hit, with the idea of like, how do we build like a mainstay in New York? We had like looked at real estate. We were trying to figure out like, what does it look like to build like a nightclub in New York, that has like, you know, a whole story attached to it and could be there forever.
My God, the dream.
A dream.
And then COVID happened.
And then COVID happened.
And you pivoted.
And we pivoted. Yeah. We basically were like, we were really lucky because we had done a bunch of creative work, obviously, and had done a bunch of like, we had gone on many like real estate foot tours around the city, and we had even gone to like at one point we were really playing with business models here, as you can tell. So like we had gone to like the dockyard, and we were like we had gotten tours of boats, and we were thinking about like, what if we put the club on a boat, and and like it was like very cold, and we were like going on this boat, and then we were talking to the guys. These were like boat guys. These were like not like rowy boat guys. These were like boat men that like, you know, spent time on boats, and they thought it was the most hilarious thing. They'd all like attempted, but they didn't like coordinate well enough. They'd all attempted to like dress up because they like heard that we were theater people. So they were like, we're going to dress up like pirates and like really get into the thing, but we didn't, because, you know, they were boat people. They didn't really commit to that much, but they kind of pulled back because they were like, yeah, it turns out, you know, you can't actually ride a boat in the wintertime in New York. So that idea plummeted, but tried a lot of random things as we were trying to figure out how to make this thing work. But yeah, all of that collapsed when COVID came around. We hadn't actually made any real estate investments, luckily. We had a bunch of creative stuff. And we'd actually talked to this director who we had been thinking about using for like our workshop development. And so we kind of had this like core team, and we'd been working with another core member of the team, Jay Lee, who's now our game designer and experience designer here at Chorus. But like we've been working with her and her partner, Yvonne. They had a theater company. So we had a bunch of like random people who had kind of been in our orbit for a long time, just kind of like meditating on what this show could be. So we had this really cool, like great creative team. And we were just like, we have all these cool people. We've got all this cool creative work. We're about to launch and do a workshop. And it was literally like, we were at the point where it was like this like few weeks and even month before COVID really hit, where everyone was like, how bad is this really? Like, should we stop meeting? Is this bad? Do we care? Is it scary? What are we doing? And we had like plans to do a script reading like in the basement of this theater, like like looking back, just like the worst place you could possibly do it. It was like deep, zero ventilation, like locked in there for hours. And we were like, I don't know if this is a good idea. So we were just like, let's like pause before we do this. And like, why don't we like, I was from corporate world. I've used this thing called Zoom. And at the time it was like very avant-garde. Like everyone was like,
Early
oh,
adopter.
Zoom. Yeah, really early adopter to the platform. But we were like, okay, what if we like just kind of throw some spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks? What if we just like don't sacrifice the creative development we were going to do on this show? And why don't we just like try to continue doing that creative development virtually for a while? It, probably won't be good. No one will come. It'll be fine. But at least like we won't lose time on the creative work. So we did. And we had like, because of this director, we were also bringing on, and just because it was a small world and network and a lot of us knew each other, like we also had this like incredibly talented, immersive performer network, which also, unfortunately, but fortunately for us, like theaters had closed. And so a lot of them were looking for work. So we got connected to some like incredible performers who we probably wouldn't have gotten to work with otherwise, who were available and could just kind of work with us for a little bit as we were trying to like play with this weird format. And so we just started to like use Zoom as a like vehicle, and like put on what would have been this club. And so we kind of like stripped it down to its like bare parts. And we were like, okay, what does like, we don't want to just like take our script and put it on Zoom because that seems pretty lame. But like if we were to just like think about the core elements of this that we want to test, like how do we like what makes a club interesting? Like how do you get that feeling when you walk into a club and you see all the people there and you like, you see the whole night in front of you and you're very excited and you're about to fall down that rabbit hole? How do you get that moment when someone like sees you from across the bar and sends you a drink? How do you like create that voyeurism feeling when you're like looking across and you see all these faces and everyone's dressed up and you don't know where they came from? Like how do you create all of those emotional feelings in a virtual space? And so that's kind of the way that we approached it. And we gave ourselves a 2-week turnaround. And then we said like, okay, we're going to put it up in 2 weeks and just like see what happens. And so we did that. And then we didn't charge tickets at first, but it got pretty big. And so we were like, we probably should charge tickets for this. And so we just started doing it week after week, and we haven't stopped. It's now been like 7 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's
crazy?
been 7 months of performance. So how many performances is that? Can you give us any like numbers? Like what are the stats?
Oh God, I wish I knew it. Is it embarrassing that I don't know any of the stats? It's been like, I mean, we've been doing it almost every single weekend for like since last March. So,
do you know about how many people have attended?
Thousands, like a couple. Like I don't know exactly how many, but we've had each show. When we started out, we were getting like close to 1,000 people per show, maybe a little less, but like we were getting like a lot of yeah, we were getting a lot of people, especially when we were first coming out. We were real hot.
Oh my gosh.
But now we'll probably get like we have a big New Year's show coming up, which we expect to be a big one.
I want to talk about that. I'm a Suzanne Barsh fan.
Suzanne Barsh will be there. Amanda Lepore will be there.
So cool.
Also, Cat Cunning, also our incredible performers.
Well, so we have a question from Dog Nuts, aka my mom. We're gonna put it on
screen. Dog Nuts.
Yeah, Dog Nuts interpreted nuts about dogs, not dog balls. But it can go either way. It can go either way. She wasn't familiar with the Twitch audience when she wrote it. Which is a little crass.
I'm so impressed. I love that. That's so much better. Honestly, that's so much better than any name I could possibly have set up for myself.
Dognuts1 said, "Hi Brittany, so great to see you and hear your story. Where do you find your talent?"
That's a very good question. It depends. When we were starting out, again, we had like a bunch of immersive theater performers that we knew, again, who had been like, And She Fell and Sleep No More, and work that had done, like they've used to kind of this interactivity work, which is like very hard in and of itself. And so we started working with those performers, but also like we wanted this to feel like a nightclub, and we realized very quickly that we didn't have to stay in New York because while when we started we thought we were going to be anchored in New York and anchored with a New York audience, we realized very quickly that like, hey, we're hot in in Japan. We got people coming in from Australia. We've got like
Wow.
we had people coming over from all over the globe, and so we really wanted to tap into performers from all over the globe as well. And so like a lot of it was me and my team literally like spending hours on Instagram just like trying to find interesting artists. And I have a weird algorithm in my mind around like how to like go down weird talent rabbit holes and find weird like very weird performers
It's an
on
art.
Instagram.
It's truly an
It
art.
is an art. It's like, yeah, I won't share my proprietary algorithm for how I do it, but it's a lot of just me on Instagram finding people. And so like we found comedians and like DJs, like all over the world, and weird performance artists and visual artists, dancers, burlesque. We found an incredible, like it was literally just random. A lot of it. Some of it has been like since we've had like performers who have suggested other performers. We've since become a little bit more institutionalized, where like we now brought on a creative producer who's like our secret weapon, who's fucking fantastic, Andrew Katz, who was the senior producer at The Box in New York and in London before all this hit. And so he has a really good Rolodex of talent as well. So, we've since then, but gotten some easier access. But before that, it was literally just me sending like Instagram messages randomly to people being like, "Hi, we're doing a show. Your Instagram's really cool. I like your puppets. Will you please join our show?"
Well, so you got Pizza Rat Guy. That was huge.
Oh, we worked. I mean, I won't say it was us because Jonathan Lyons is like an incredible artist who's been working in mask work for a long time. But Buddy the Rat was like, we incubated with him in Eschaton over the last 8 months, and he's the artist who obviously created it. But he's lived and kind of born and been created in Eschaton, and now he's Pizza Rat.
Oh my god! So that character was developed in Eschaton.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I will. I'll amend. I'll just say that like I know he's done an incredible amount of work on it on his own, and so I wouldn't say that like we did anything, but like I know that we gave him a space where he was able to like develop that. I know, but he's an incredible artist and mask creator, so it's his piece. We were just lucky to get to house it and have him live in our space for the last 7 months. Now he is too hot for us.
What are some of your other like standout performers that you've worked with? I know they're all amazing. This is not playing favorites, but like who are some that come to mind right away?
Come to mind, I really can't. It is hard to like call out people because like it's just the performers are like in general just like the most fulfilling part of the whole experience, because like beyond the fact like the way that even the contracts are set up, like I was always very inspired by like the vaudeville structure of things, where it was like people come around with their own acts and their own like pieces that they just need spaces for, and we kind of put together shows.
Bill's going crazy. I'm so sorry. He's never done this on the show. Hold on.
We're having cats in our New Year's show. We can have some dogs.
Real cats?
Real cats.
This is my secret weapon.
Is it water? You just spray it?
Spray bottle, yeah.
Wow, it's powerful.
He's backing away. I didn't have to spray it. Okay, sorry. So
that's real power. You don't even have to spray it.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. So you were saying
performers. Yeah, I was just saying they're like the performers are just like truly like it's unlike working with anyone I've worked with in any industry. It's just the amount of hard work that they put into it outside of hours. Like they're their own. Now we're trying to invest a little bit more in the spaces and in the tech, but like for many months they've been their own set designers and costume designers and lighting designers. They've these are hour-long sets that we create. Our show is 60 minutes exactly, and I guess I'll give the context that like what the show is basically we have we say like countless, but it's really anywhere between like 15 and like 20 25 different stages per show. Each of these stages is a different Zoom room, and performers are in those stages, and they have whatever it is that their act is. We work with them a lot of the times. Tessa's a writer still, and so she'll create a lot of dialogue and monologues for the performers if they need it, but a lot of it does come from their own development. We'll give them concepts if they need it, and we'll help them with kind of narrative arcs for the space, but like each show is an hour-long show. So essentially we have like 20 plus hours worth of content in every show. So it's just like an incredible amount of work that we would not have been able to do if the performers weren't like so fucking fantastic. But I will say there's a couple people who like have been doing this now, like since we started. So, months and months and months. And I do think the people who have like been doing it for that long have really developed like a new style of performance, which I think is just like really fucking cool, because it's definitely theatrical, because it's obviously like it's live, but it's not theater because it's on film. And it's not quite film acting, though it is probably more like film acting than it is like theater acting, because like you're angling towards a camera, you got a shot, everyone sees the same thing, you're creating, it's that kind of experience, but it is live, and so it's not recorded, there's no editing. So it's like and it's all interactive. Most of these rooms, not all of these rooms that we have, but a lot of the rooms are interactive. That's a core piece of what we do. So it's like, but it's not interactive like a normal immersive theater production. It's like, you're sitting here in a room and people have to like call on you and create interactivity and have these conversations. So I'll call out like Mallory Grayson and like Amy Jo, and I'm forgetting lots of people, but we've got a lot of performers who've just been doing it for a long time and have like just fucking killed it.
Wow. So they are interacting with the audience.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Not all the rooms. Like Jono, Mr. Buddy the Rat. Actually, he does a little bit of interactivity now, but when it started out, he was not doing any interactivity. But most of the rooms have interactivity, yeah.
So the performers are looking at Zoom and they're like, oh, Brittany's in the room. They can like tell that while they're
they see, it's just, we make them basically, we do a whole like pre-show before the show starts where we go through every room. Christina Vanook is our production manager and stage manager, and so she's just incredible powerhouse who like has developed like the most incredible system for how we run these shows. She does it single-handedly, so it's like really, really impressive. And before the shows, we go room to room, and each performer is spotlit. We do all these tech checks. We know Zoom down to like, I was just in a Zoom room for like 2 hours before this, where they were like, doing like, do you have original sound on? Do you have like, have you disabled your background noise, and this and that and this and that? So there's lots of different things that we layer on top of it. QLab, all these different technologies. So lots of that stuff, which enables it. But yeah, they're just essentially in Zoom.
How many people are on your team?
So there are 2 others besides me that are full-time at Chorus. But then we have three others that are also full-time, but like work for the show. And then we have at this point like 60 plus performers that are like part of our community and our network that we like cast our shows from. That's really cool. And then we've got like an army of assistant stage managers that we have like 4 or 5 assistant stage managers per show that run it as well.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is a huge production. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I guess the big question is, what does the future hold? Like, is Eschaton going to stay virtual? Like, what do you think is going to happen next?
It's a great question. I think we are staying open. I mean, Eschaton, it's one of those things where we never intended to be virtual, obviously, but I do feel like we have stumbled not just onto like a weird COVID like fix, but like for me, I'm not a gamer. There's a whole, I didn't even talk about this, but there's a whole like game design element to the show as well, which people have gotten really passionate about. I think that's been in some ways our secret sauce over the last year, is that like people come back. There's some people who've come to literally every single show since we started, because there's just like this lore and this puzzle in this world that people there's Discords and like Reddit pages where people like get really into that. I can't claim any of that. That was all Jay that developed the puzzles. Yeah.
No way.
Discord.
I need to see these. Yeah. I want to join the Discord.
I'm sure they'll accept you. They accepted me. They don't know it's me. I tell. Under a different name.
Wait, that's so cool that so like fans made a Discord?
Yeah, our fans are fucking fantastic. We've got like the best. That was the coolest part of this whole thing, is that there's just been like, I think a big piece of it was there was already like pretty hardcore fans of the immersive theater genre. Mm-hmm. but like they're spread out all over the world, and a lot of them didn't get to go to New York and to see this type of work. And so all of a sudden, we like one created a space where you could see this level of production and these performers, every week, which is really cool. But also like this community of people from all over the world had never met each other. And all these fans who've been part of this had never met each other. And so they all kind of literally came face to face for the first time in the show, and they came back week to week. And so we started to see this dynamic come up. It almost felt like a neighborhood bar, where like people were coming out and hanging out in the same rooms, and now they have all their own like chats. So like we'll do shows and we have it's like whenever we have new rooms, like that we will put up, new rooms every couple shows into the experience. And like without fail, I go in that room and like, it's all faces I know, and they know it's a new room immediately, and because I know they've got like text threads and groups that they're all chatting about now. And so we'll have like, tens of, if not hundreds of people in the same room, like immediately, because they're all talking to each other, which is like, it's really fun to see. And like, I recognize the same faces, and everyone's really supportive and wonderful.
That's so cool. Can you talk? I know we got distracted from the future conversation, but we got to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little more about the game element and like the lore?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, again, it's one of those things where I can like speak a ton to it, but it's like all from the brilliant mind of Jay and Tessa, who developed the narrative, obviously. And Emma, we have one engineer who's, I forgot, that's another person who works with us full time. It's a lot of people, who does like, and she's like single-handedly done everything on the website. Cause that's another core piece of this, is that it's not just Zoom. We wanted to create a big piece of immersive entertainment, is like easing your way in and kind of the onboarding into an experience and the offboarding of it. We wanted to really create like a natural way to come into a club, that felt, again, like organic. So
what's the website?
Well, you probably won't be able to get in, but it's eschaton.chorusproductions.com. Yeah, eschaton.chorusproductions.com. I think it'll tell you it's closed right now.
Here, I'm gonna see if we can bring it up. One sec. Alright, now that's gonna be on screen. Okay, here's Chorus Productions. Oh, it's 18 plus only.
Oh yeah, it's 18 plus. We can't do full nudity because we're afraid Zoom will kick us off, but we got some racing stuff.
Okay, so we can't get into the action. Is this what I was trying to look at?
No, I'm glad you're featuring this though, because this is where you buy tickets. But
yes.
It's if you go to eschaton.chorusproductions.com, put a little eschaton at the front of there, the URL. This is basically before each show.
Okay.
There you go. So before each show, you'll come here, and this won't be there when the show comes up. It will instead be a login page, and you'll get a unique password, which will take you into the show. And then we have a lobby with music, and have chat, so you can hang out in there for a while. And then at the hour mark, a video plays, and you're welcomed in by a concierge. And then you're greeted by a couple of floating doors, and you choose one of those doors that will take you into one of our main stages. You kind of different tastes. We kind of give you different like little tidbits of what you might see in those rooms, and then you go in, and our army of incredible assistant stage managers drop what are called room keys in the chat. And those room keys, we have a spot on our website where you can put in those room keys, and they'll take you to different Zoom rooms. So it kind of becomes this thing where you don't get all those keys at once. People kind of collect them, and they'll like keep them on like notes, and people will share them with each other. But we have different room keys in every show, and with those room keys, you get to see like deeper and deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. You find different stages and different types of experiences.
Interesting. So is there like a story or like lore that kind of encompasses the whole show, or like what are people trying to uncover other than like the new environments?
Yeah, so basically it's what I will say is that basically there's a missing performer who like is mentioned. If you come to the show, you'll hear it in like even the opening monologues. for any of the performers. They mentioned that there's a performer that went missing, kind of when this show went virtual, and no one's seen her in a long time. She was kind of the star of the show. Her name is Mary, and no one's seen her in months. But everyone kind of has different relationships to her. Everyone's a little bit like, yeah. Some people like miss her a ton. Some people are like, yeah, good riddance. She was a diva, but she's disappeared and no one's seen her. And when you're in the show, one of the room keys that is dropped is a key that takes you, that you can put into the code box on our website will actually take you into a web page. And like as you go in there, you'll start to uncover, and these are like, it's very inspired by like early stages of escape the room online, which I actually didn't even know a ton about, but like Tessa. Yeah, Crimson Room, I believe it was called, and a couple of others were just big references for them. And the idea was like, how do we, like in very two-dimensional kind of point and click style game, how do we kind of like go deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole of like what happened to this person? It ultimately is not it's not entirely about her. It's a little bit more about the lore of like, what is this weird place? We're very like Lynchian. We're very like David Lynch inspired, very surreal. We like aliens. We like weird sci-fi things. So we just kind of go deeper and deeper into like what is real and what's not. So it goes real deep. But yeah, there's a lot of puzzles, and people have gotten like really, really far in it. So we're just kind of like trying to go steps ahead.
So cool.
We used to, when we started out, it was really fun. We were doing like, and we want to come back and do more of this. There was like more interactive IRL stuff too, where like when we first started, it was just, Tessa and me and Jay and Christina really that were doing it. And it was like, we'd have things where you get a phone number and you called that phone number and it took you to a voice on the other line. And that voice on the other line was Tessa, but like she'd pretend that she was like, a pizza delivery person, and she'd like ask them what type of pizza they want. People would think it was like this like weird metaphorical journey they were going on with this weird disembodied voice, and like have this conversation. And then Tessa would hang up and like call a pizza place and have a pizza delivered to their house with their with the things that they wanted, and it would be there when they hung up the phone. So we were doing a lot of that stuff, and people really responded really well to it. So we've tried to make all the puzzles like weirder and weirder and kind of creep into your life in more and more fun ways.
That's so cool. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Well, man, if everyone watching this isn't about to go buy tickets, you're crazy, because it just like sounds it's so amazing. I've done it. And I can't wait to do it again. I still don't really know if I have any New Year's plans. I might not. In the case that I don't, that's where I'm going.
Please do. You were an early supporter of the show. You came early. You helped us out in lots of ways. You've been a part of it.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Is the show on New Year's Eve 1 hour?
It is technically 1 hour, and it's 11 p.m. Eastern, so it actually won't even mess with your actual New Year's. It was an hour, but there is an hour-long after party as well.
Ooh. Oh my god. Yeah, I'm such a Barshland fan. Is that how you say it?
Barshland fan. Yeah.
Barshland. Yeah, I'm such a fan. Barshland. That's like major. That's really major.
She's fantastic. I mean, I was just they're incredible. They're doing one of our after parties, but also like the Chelsea Hotel. Just to stream from the Chelsea Hotel is so fucking cool to me.
Yeah,
it's like
iconic.
Yeah, just like a part of history.
Wow. Well, I'm so proud of you and happy for you. It just seems like so exciting. And I guess, so you don't have any immediate plans to like go, back not online. What's the word?
Not virtual. I don't know what is not online anymore. It's one of those things where the reason that we were successful this time around, we know, is because we were nimble. And I think again, kind of core tenet of the company is that like we want to always meet audiences where they are, and like we're very aware that like audiences right now are very different than they were 7-8 months ago when we started. Like Zoom fatigue is a real thing. It's like we if we're not honest with ourselves about what we're creating, we're kind of like wasted. Like again, it's in some ways the most pure form of media, because it's like if we're not, the audience will tell us whether or not we are successful. And I think like we know in our gut when it's working and when it's not. So like we plan to continue to adapt and evolve. Like again, like this form of entertainment, this kind of like weird virtual form of entertainment, has just given us so many opportunities, because we don't have that real estate anchor anymore, because our model, coming back full circle, is now like totally different. We can like invest in having like so many more performers. We can pay them well. We can do things like that, instead of like, what we would have had to do, where we dealing with like, millions of dollars in real estate costs in New York.
God, yeah.
But like, we're just, we're a lot more flexible. We have an audience now that can come in from around the world, instead of just New York. We're able to have different ticket prices. Our tickets are $15, as opposed to like most stuff in this space is like, $100+. So it can be much more accessible. So there's just like, there's a lot of opportunities, but it all will come back to the audience. And I think that like when ultimately like we get vaccines, and when ultimately like we're in a spot where the world does come back to semblance of reality, like I think we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But like we'll try to be honest as to like where people really are during those times, and like what entertainment is like actually meaningful to people during that. And if it means that like we need to do both virtual and in person, like we're open to that. If it means that like people don't want to go online anymore because they like hate it, or be aware of that. If it means that like, again, as I said before, like I'm not a gamer. I haven't found my community on Fortnite or anything like that. If it continues to be this place where like we can authentically hone these communities online virtually, which I think is going to happen, like then we'll continue to grow there. We're just going to try to adapt as the world kind of continues to adapt around us.
Yeah. That's all we can hope for, right?
That's right.
Gotta roll with the punches.
We're
We've
rolling.
already done a great job of that.
Thank you. This is wonderful support of the people we love.
Yay.
Like
Well,
dog nuts.
yeah. But my mom says I'll be back hopefully on New Year's Eve. Congratulations
Yay,
on
please come
exceptional
back.
success.
Oh,
We're all going back to Eschaton.
Everybody come back to Eschaton.
Ooh, I can't wait.
I'm
amped up.
I'm amped up too.
Do you get really excited after? Or like do you get that like rush?
It's a really good question. I get really nervous. I get much more nervous as a producer than I did as a performer. Much more nervous.
Interesting. Why?
Because I have to do a lot more like public oration, which I don't like, which is interesting. I don't like that. I like acting. But like we had a great event yesterday that we put on, and it was one of those things where it was very like, it's like it ends, and like you feel this like, it's like the end of a show, and it feels really good, and everyone's kind of like virtually high-fiving themselves, and everyone's like slacking and talking about how good the show was. It's just like, it's different. The feelings are still there. Everyone still likes it, but it's like, at the end of the day, you close your laptop and you're like, there's no one there.
Yeah. It's such a weird feeling, isn't it?
It's really weird. But yeah, it's like the world kind of adapts and grows. It's like, it's not the same as live theater, and it will never be the same as live theater, but it is something else. And we're kind of like reveling in the something else right now.
Do you ever think about what it's going to be like when you have every person in the same room for the first time?
No, I mean, I can't even, it's hard to even conceptualize what that would be like. It's
It'll
like,
be a party.
I haven't, it'll just be an absolute party. I mean, I haven't met almost anyone in the show. Like Tessa, obviously I've met. Jay, I know. But like, besides that, even Christina, who I've now worked with for 8 months, Emma, Andrew, I haven't met a single one of them in person. I haven't met a single performer in person. We had a couple, like, before things got really bad, a couple like socially distanced meetups and stuff where some people who were in New York at the time met, but like I haven't met a single person. So I think some of our team are like, I know Tessa's really tall, so she really wants everyone to see her because it's like just very powerful and tall. No one knows she's tall. Like, yeah, for me, it's like they only know my shoulders and above, so I try to be like, very like,
That's so funny. I've noticed I've like started telling people Like all my friends that I've made during COVID that I haven't met, I'm like, I'm 5'2". Can you believe it? Or I'm always like, how tall do you
You're
think I
five
am?
two.
Yeah. What? How tall did you think I was?
You've got a very powerful presence. I thought you were taller.
No. No. I'm like
How
barely
we made
5'2".
COVID friends?
How? Oh my God. So many ways. I have so many COVID friends. It's crazy.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think
Wait, teach
mostly
me
through
your ways.
Twitch.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've just been like introduced to so many people because a lot of people want to come on to Twitch and then they introduce me to their friends. And I usually like meet them because I'm explaining like how it works or what to do. Um, but a lot of them I've
See,
like
proved your
become
friends.
actual friends with.
How do you maintain those? Like, how do you actually have the friendship part of it? Like, you meet in the context of Twitch, but then like, do you like talk on the phone? How do you like become friends?
Um, well, a lot of them we have like the same taste in music. So music is like a big connector, and we're all friends on Discord and like in Discord servers together. Sometimes we play games together, like DM,
Thing.
text. We watch like shows together. But the other thing
Oh,
is, a lot of them are actually a lot younger than me. So they're much
interesting.
more used to like online relationships, you know?
You find that
Oh, yeah, big time.
interesting.
Like one of my closest friends now, his name's Robin. He was on the show the first week. He's 21, and he like grew up online, and so it's totally
Really
normal for him to like be close friends with people that he's never even met. And he lives in Canada. Like I literally have friends. I have a ton of friends in Canada now.
Really? In
Yeah.
Canada?
Mhm. Yep. And they all
That's so
met
cool.
on Discord, like in high school.
They all met on Discord. That's so interesting to me. That's so cool. I feel like that's something that I really struggled with over during COVID is like I haven't found beyond like Eschaton, it's been hard for me to find natural communities.
Yeah.
And that feeling of like of exploration like socially has just been really like really hard to find.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's definitely Discord, Twitch. Um, like, I went to like a sober girls in San Francisco, like Zoom hangout, which was really cool, and like met a bunch of
Interesting.
cool girls that I would have never gotten to meet. Found out about that. Oh, hey, C Mills, what's up? See, C Mills, another example of someone I met on Twitch, and we like hung out on Discord this morning, right?
What? Invite me. I want to come.
I will. You just gotta
Wow, I
come.
feel so left out. Our relationship has been all phone calls during COVID.
I
Now I feel
know.
like I've missed out on all the social experiences.
I mean, it's here and there. There are also like a lot of shows on Twitch, um, and like online like concerts, not virtual theater, obviously. Um,
Yeah.
but the way that like
But do you see
virtual
people?
what?
Like, but do you see them? Like, do you see people when you do that? Or are you like,
No, usually. So we're just like talking in chat on Twitch.
yeah,
Um, but like I'll see my friends' names. And I'll like know who's there and then we can like offline talk about it or just talk about it in the chat. But it's interesting to see how like virtual concerts have developed and evolved.
yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah, sometimes oh yeah. So actually, the first time C Mills and I met, we were in a club quarantine Zoom concert. Um,
Whoa.
and one of my favorite DJs, 99 Jakes, was playing. And we were just in Zoom, so we were all just like talking in the chat. And it was actually really funny because 99 Jakes is from Santa Fe. And everyone was like talking, and we were like, oh, like I need like friends that stan Jade in SF. Like if you're in SF, like add me on Instagram. But SF is also Santa Fe. So all
Oh.
of these people like start talking to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, like where in San Francisco do you live? And they're like, what? I live in Santa Fe.
Oh, I know a bunch of people who have moved to Santa Fe during COVID. Interestingly enough.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Or New Mexico.
it was pretty hilarious. It was a rookie
That's really
mistake.
interesting. That's a rookie
Yeah.
mistake, yeah, for sure. But it's super interesting. I'm impressed that you've really dove into that. I find it really interesting and very intimidating.
Um. Oh, a lot. Female says a lot of people she knows moved to San Diego. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's very natural to me now. I think also just like getting really familiar with chatting on Twitch makes it less scary. And also the
Yeah.
fact that like I go by the same name everywhere, like people
Interesting.
will
Do you really?
recognize me. Yeah, like I'm Amanda Peanut on everything.
See, that's a really interesting because I found that like for our show, a big piece of it is like we let people be whoever they want to be. Like that's kind of the point is like you can kind of have any name you want. But it's
Mhm.
interesting that your identity is consistent across like you don't personally want to like disappear and become someone else. You kind of have a
Yeah.
virtual identity that you'd want to have consistent across.
Yeah, I think it really helps to stay consistent. Because even though I'm not like a DJ or an artist, like I think people who have some familiarity with your name will come back. You know, you're not like a
Yeah.
stranger.
You've been Amanda Peanut forever.
I know. I know.
Isn't that
Was
also
it?
your AIM?
Probably. Actually, I don't know. I think my AIM was misconfused.
Oh, you're right. It was. You're right. It was.
um, C. Mills says it helps to stay consistent when you're part of an online community. Very true.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But I'm curious, like, I think that's true. But right now, it feels like there's a lot of fragmentation in online communities. Like, obviously, there's Twitch world, but it feels like there's a lot of different, maybe Discord. I don't spend a ton of time on Discord, so I can't really speak to that, obviously. But like, it just feels like there's a bunch of like kind of housed different like virtual communities that I don't know like fully speak to each other. So it's just interesting to think about how those identities like cross.
I think the way that I've seen it play out is that people who have like a consistent following will make a Discord so that their, biggest fans can connect, and they can also connect with the person that they like. So the creator is always in the Discord. Um, but then, okay, wait, sorry, I lost my train of thought. There are a couple levels. So you
Yeah.
have the creator, okay, right. So, for example, on Instagram yesterday, there's this account that I really love called Third Eye Thoughts, which is like a spirituality account. Um,
Third eye.
and they went live for the first time yesterday. I had no idea who was behind the account. It has like over 2 million followers. And it was this guy named Hunter, and there were 300 people watching the live video. And he mentioned that he had a Discord. And I was like, what? That's amazing. Like, I have to be in this Discord channel. And
Yeah.
so, and I asked, like, oh, how do you join the Discord? And he was like, oh, go to the link in my bio. There's a link tree. So basically, not all of his 2 million Instagram followers are going to go join the Discord. But the people who, like, really
Right.
want to engage and meet people will go and join it. And so this morning, C. Mills and I were in my friend Matt, aka Young Skirt's Discord. Um,
Yeah.
and they were all just hanging out. Um, so I think it's like it's not for everyone. There's always like a
I love that.
trickle.
It's like, and when you're hanging out, you're not necessarily like talking about the thing that you are like in the Discord for. You're just hanging out with that community.
Yeah. I mean, this morning yeah, like Skirt was on Instagram. C. Mills was showing me their tarot cards. There were
Yeah.
like 6 of us in there. We were in a voice channel. Um,
Interesting.
so it's kind of like Zoom, and you can turn on your video if you want. Um, there are a lot of things. I mean, Discord is a total beast. Like, there's so many things you can do in it. And Eschaton could
Oh, it's so
totally
funny.
utilize it. But I think it's really cool that the fans already made one.
I know. They're much cooler than us, clearly. They know what they're doing.
I mean, it's a new thing. Like Michaela recently got on Discord too. Um,
Michaela, oh, Lil Michaela, or
Little Michaela.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
But as you start joining different Discords, you'll see the way that they're organized. Like there are tons of different rooms and there are different topics for each room. It's, yeah. I mean, just building a Discord is like a job you could hire someone to
Isn't
do.
it funny that like I'm in this whole world and I find it so interesting, but there's definitely this generational difference where like there's still a barrier to entry for me where it's like I still get worried about like interacting with people online, like have like saying things. I feel like there's still like this weird like something generational around like being like I don't know what it is. Something to do with like I don't know something to do with like having like a permanence to my like thoughts on a in a virtual way. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Um, no, I talked about this actually when I was interviewing Robin, because we were kind of talking about the difference of growing up online versus
Yeah.
whatever I did, which was not necessarily growing up online. It was hilarious because my mom was watching and she was like, "Oh, I'm going to leave so you guys can talk more freely." And then I was like, "Well, the reason I haven't put myself out there in this form, like having a talk show, talking openly about my
Yeah.
life." Oh my God, sorry, Bill wants food. Is because my parents scare the shit out of me. Like I was
About
raised,
the internet.
yeah, we
Yeah.
were totally
Yeah, for
raised
sure.
to be afraid and like, we're gonna get abducted or, everything you say is gonna be on the internet forever and will be held against you. Like I was
I mean, the crazy thing
literally
is that it's not wrong, which is funny. It's not wrong, but there's just a
right.
chain. I don't know. There's like a certain ownership that I think that the next generation has, where it's like it's still there, but there's a certain amount of like, yeah, I said it.
Yeah, and I
That we
mean, if you are conscious and stand behind what you say and aren't reckless and saying harmful things, there's no harm in putting yourself out there as long as you can handle whatever people have to say about you. I
yeah,
think that's the biggest concern is like not being able to deal with other people's reactions, but we're smart, independent, and we're not that young. Like at a certain point you have to be like, you know what? Oh my God, Bill's going nuts. At a certain point, you have to be like, yeah, I'm ready to just express myself. And at this point, it's kind of important to further your career in some ways.
totally. I mean, I think that again, it's like it is the final frontier, right? Around like exploration. Like I remember when chat roulette came out, that
Mm-hmm.
was so powerful. Like, I mean, yes,
Yeah.
there were a lot of dicks, but like, and I was, we were quite young to be seeing so many dicks, but like, but like, it was just something like so powerful about being like, 13 years old, 14 years old, or whatever, and like getting to like click on a button and like talk to like there's somebody in like Spain in front of you, and all of a sudden like there's like a 80-year-old woman on the screen. And then there was the whole thing about like all the celebrities that were on there. You could click through and you could talk to, I don't remember who was cool then, Josh Hartnett. I don't know. Who were
Right.
we into? Uh,
Yeah. Now there's a new
uh,
version, Omegle.
what is it? Omegle?
Yeah.
Omegle existed then too.
Oh, same thing.
I mean, it's not the same thing at all,
I don't
but
know.
and it was.
Honestly, I've never done either of them.
Do people use Omegle these days?
Yeah. On Twitch all the time.
Interesting.
But then if something inappropriate comes up, you can get your account banned immediately if you're live.
Good. Or good that there's some.
Oh,
Is that,
Meagle.
do
Okay.
people do it live? People Omega live?
Yeah.
Great
People
idea.
do it on Twitch. People will
That's so
stream
fun.
themselves doing it. Yeah, I'm behind on. I don't know. I never got into the. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Is it
No, you
Omegle?
are.
Omegle?
No,
I
I
don't
just
know.
I don't know. I don't think anyone's ever going to correct you. If anyone ever says, I believe it's Omegle.
C Mills, am I pronouncing it right? Help. They said that it's been around the same amount of time as
Yeah, I
chat
remember
roulette.
playing on Omegle too.
But yeah, I
It was
mean, It's an interesting landscape for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just again, it's like if you, I've been wanting to explore the internet these days. Um, but it's there's not really it's interesting because like if you're not a gamer, I like that you brought up music because I do think that's a big piece of it. But like as somebody who I play a lot of video games, but like I didn't grow up on video games, so I think that I like literally don't have the same adaptive behavior at this point to like really get into like video games as a genre, even though I love the graphics and I enjoy a lot of the world building. So it's like I feel like a lot of the communities online are based around like a gaming experience, and so
Mm-hmm.
without that, it feels like a barrier to entry to like get into that world without a shared passion. Um,
Yeah.
music point.
Well, that's what I'm trying to change by doing this talk show. You know, like it's the perfect
I'm so glad.
place. It's a perfect opportunity. Um, we're starting out small, obviously. It takes time to develop an audience, but that's
We
what
got dog nuts.
yeah, Dog Nuts is here. Thank you, Dog Nuts. C
Thank
Mill
you, dog nuts.
said they've been consistent on the internet since she was 12, currently 29, and no one cares how you pronounce Omegle, so that's good. We are also
Yes.
28, almost 29.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
C Mills
We
has
look
noticed,
younger than we are.
yeah. C Mills has noticed a lot of art community building too, and mental health communities and yeah, mental health, spiritual, and art. Those are like my three things that I love.
Yeah.
So maybe
Mental
that's
health,
why.
spiritual, art. Interesting.
Yep, yep. It's I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just people that are into that feel more comfortable putting themselves out there online and getting to know people
That's
that way.
interesting.
And it's also like, what choice do we have right now?
Right.
I'm pretty adamant about not making excuses. And I've noticed that a lot of people, I'm not saying this is you at all, Brittany, I'm literally referring to other people.
Oh
Um,
God.
but they're like,
Same.
oh, like, I just am like really tired of my friends. And it's like, oh, well, like, sounds like you need to make new friends. And then they're
Yeah.
like, well, it's a pandemic, so it's kind of hard. It's like, that's an excuse. Like, it's not
Yeah.
that hard. If you want to make new friends, you can make new friends, pandemic or not. Like,
Yeah, I think people are
it,
really afraid. I think again, it's generational in a lot of ways. I do feel like to your point on the fear, like I don't like growing up, it was one of those things where it's like you make a friend online, it could be a scary pervert man who wants to
yeah,
like take you in the back of his car and kill you. It's like, like I don't know, God, I don't want to say hi to this person. What do you mean by hello? What are you gonna do to me, creepy
exactly.
man?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Robin was saying, like, back in high school, whatever, when he was making all these friends on Discord, he was like, we would know if one of them was like a 50-year-old fat guy in his basement because we're all on Zoom for like 12 hours. Like, we could see each
interesting.
other, like they weren't,
They
it
go on. They
wasn't,
went on Zoom.
yeah, so they would like hang out on Zoom all day.
Interesting. Even in high school, they were like hanging out on Zoom.
Yeah, before the pandemic. C. Mills said that they made friends through Tinder. It's not the tools, it's what you do with them.
Yeah, it's well said.
100%.
Yeah, it's totally true. I mean, it's funny. It's the like it is. It's there's a we're definitely have like paralysis by access right now because there are so many tools, and I think that like
Mm-hmm.
everyone has a lot of like shame and guilt around the way that they use it a lot of the time. And I say that generally. Obviously, not everyone does.
Mm-hmm.
But like there's a lot of times I haven't not said that about my friends. I think I've got great friends, but I do think that like there's been lots of times where I felt like lonely during like COVID, and I haven't made the leap and gone on Discord and dove into that, and I don't really know why. It's an interesting question. Like probably intimidation. I think it's like it's probably the same reason like I only played Fortnite once, like
Mm-hmm.
like once, and then like I felt like I was beat by a 13-year-old kid, and then I was like, well, it's not my space anymore. Someone has taken over, and so I left. I don't think people as they get older like really like to feel intimidated by youth, so
Yeah.
they avoid it.
Yeah. Harmonica and Banjo said, what's wrong with 50-year-old fat guys?
Oh God, is that my dad?
I'm pretty sure that's your dad. Hey, Robert.
They're
Not
creepy
nothing
and they hang
wrong.
out in younger people's Twitch channels. That's what's bad about them.
Ah, I love it. Oh, he says that he got the TV after college.
How much after college? Not enough. Not enough that it would work correctly.
Less vintage than we thought.
Wow. I question that. I question that. It was old. It was
A
very old.
classic. It is a
It was a
classic.
classic for sure.
But I think another thing that's like really helped me is just being overly friendly.
Yeah.
And like literally giving everyone a chance. Like pretty much anyone I come in contact with, I'm like, we could be friends. Like
You've done a really
I'm
good job of that. Yeah.
I'm basically like, oh, goodbye, Robert. He says bye. Thanks for
Bye.
watching.
Thanks for tuning in.
Hold on, I have to give Bill more food. 1 second.
Take
It's
your
right
time.
next to me. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of look at every. Dana says creepy.
I know it is.
I think it's hilarious. But yeah, I look at every social interaction I have, even if it's for work, as like a potential friend. Because that's
Yeah.
all we
Have you
can
been
do
able?
these days.
I feel like, yeah. I guess Twitch is like a particularly good place to make online friends, and as in like the work side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
Have you
It's
made a
crazy.
lot of friends from work?
Yeah, a good amount. Good amount. I mean, a lot of them are in LA, which is really sad. But I actually made a friend on Slack. Literally, we
What?
became friends over
You're
Slack.
the first person to ever make a friend on Slack
I know. And we're not
officially.
even in the same department. He's an engineer.
How did you do that? Did you just accidentally reach out to him?
No, music. There's a pop music. Yeah, it was crazy
Slack?
times.
A pop music Slack?
Yeah, so our work Slack has a bunch of different like fun channels, and one of them is like pop music. And since I'm really into like underground pop, I don't know who added me or how I found out about it, but I ended up in this pop channel, and my friend John, we had like very similar tastes. We're both huge Charlie XCX stands.
Yeah.
Um, and so eventually we just like started talking because it was basically just me and him talking about Charlie. I was like, maybe we should take this
Cool.
off the group Slack channel and we'll just talk. And he lives in San Francisco and now we hang out.
Really? That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Would you ever go back to LA or are you like done? Done for?
Uh, I would love to go back to LA. I don't know. I'm like
Really?
constantly torn. I think about it all the time. I miss it a lot.
Really?
Well, I miss LA before COVID, you know?
Yeah,
I miss it so
I know.
much.
Would you post COVID? Do you think you're back? We're thinking about LA.
I would love if you were in LA. I mean, I don't know. It's so hard to know at this point.
Yeah.
God, I don't know. I mean, I don't have to decide for like 9 months,
No,
so
you do not. You don't have to decide at all.
yeah.
Do whatever you
I will
want.
just never decide.
You can just yeah, you can just live in inconsistency and
Are you
you've got
gonna
a
go
great
back to
spot.
London?
We officially got our visa accepted this week, so we officially can live in London.
Yay.
Yeah, we're very
Oh my
excited.
gosh. Wow, that's
We're very excited.
huge.
Yeah, so we're still deciding. I have to figure out how all that works. We love London. London's such a fucking cool place.
Oh,
Um,
I would.
I've only really experienced it in COVID, so I don't actually really know, but I tell it's fantastic.
Oh my gosh. I can only imagine. I would love the chance to live there. Hold on. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Bill is being so
think about
difficult.
that.
What?
Bill, you love London. You would
Did
really like it.
Did you ever meet Victoria?
No, we never met. There was also a lot of like there were some big time shutdowns that happened right around then. So
Yeah, I know. Bad timing. Bill, you can
that
take
time.
my lap. You are invited.
Bill,
Okay,
Bill,
here we go.
good.
You can say hello to everybody.
Hi, Bill. You're
Um,
so good.
I probably need to take him on a walk because
You can
it's
do
about
that.
that
You're allowed to.
time. But I could talk to you all day. But we can do another
I know, this is
episode.
so much fun. We should do another episode. This is so fun. See, this is like because we don't get to see you're up. Wow, this show is so great. You're so right. This is a great way to reconnect and talk and
Right? I know. It's like we
so
always have interesting conversations, so why not do them publicly and invite other
yeah,
people to be a part of it, you know?
yeah. I feel like we only just got to all the good stuff.
I know. I know. I wish Bill wasn't being so difficult. My
It's okay. Bill's
God.
both of our top priorities. So
Yeah. The place
take
in
care of
Palm Springs looks really nice. I love this background.
it's great. We're in a fantastic Airbnb.
Oh,
I mean, it's like essentially this is the whole place,
yeah.
but it has like its main feature is that it has a pool and a hot tub. So I haven't ever had a pool or a hot tub. So
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah.
C Mills, I'm sorry that you missed the beef of the episode. It was really interesting.
Oh
Um,
no,
Brittany
Smells. We got to
has
do another one for Smells.
Yes, Brittany has this amazing theater company called Chorus Productions. And wait, I'm gonna put the link in here so
Yeah,
you can check it out. They do
yeah.
virtual theater productions, and they are doing a really cool New Year's Eve show, which I will probably attend.
Please, Smells. Please join us. It should be really fun.
It's gonna be super fun. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you so much, Brittany. I'm so glad we got to catch up in this way. It was so much fun. Oh, and I mean, even next time, like Tessa could come on. Like, we can bring on
Yeah, totally.
multiple people.
Yeah, yeah. We should definitely bring on Tessa. It'd be really fun.
We can do a round table.
Ooh, ooh, yeah. Bring a couple people. We could get in a debate
Hell
and get
yeah.
feisty. Yeah.
That would be so fun. I'm interviewing
Yeah, you can
another
play games. You do
playwright.
some Never Have I Ever. That's what we do in interactive experiences when we don't have anything to do with different performers. We have them play Never Have I Ever.
Oh
So
my god, that's fun. That would actually be
it always
fun.
works.
We
It
should
always
do
works
that.
in a good group context. Yeah,
Hell yeah. Hell
two
yeah.
truths and a lie.
I'm down. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
let's do it.
Yay.
I'll
All
see you
right.
then.
Thanks,
Bill,
Dana.
you
Thanks, C
enjoy being
Mills.
yourself.
We'll talk to everybody soon. Have a great night,
We'll talk to you soon.
everyone.
Amanda Peanut, thanks for having me. You're the
Thanks for
best.
coming. Bye. Mwah.
Bye. Mwah.